personal truth that they hold, but there's no action items attached to that belief.
That's right.
And because they don't work on any of those things and don't produce any of this, it becomes really hard, especially in times where the world is crashing in on you, just to panic and fly off into crazy land, when you should be even keel and showing the fruit of the Spirit.
Yeah, and the fruit of the Spirit shows our faithfulness.
Yeah.
I mean,
Right.
if I say I believe Jesus Christ is my Lord and Savior, and I believe He's going to supply all my needs according to His riches and glory, and this, that, and the other, but I don't live it, I live in a perpetual state of, how am I going to do this? How am I going to do that? Or I live in a perpetual state of, I'm still, like a dog returning to his vomit.
Right.
You couldn't have peace without having faith by knowing it was going to be okay.
Right. And I think that's a lot of reason that people
Together.
don't have
Every one of them
is because
together.
yeah, they're all stitched together, and as soon as you start leaving one off, it's like pulling at a thread. You're pulling at the whole piece then, instead of just saying, well, all right, I'm weak in this area, I don't need on it, I know that I'm weak on it. Well, no, that thread's going to start pulling, and soon you're going to see other pieces of that fruit turning rotten too.
Yep.
Yeah, well, one thread can make the whole garment fall off.
But the fruit of the Spirit is love, and the fruit of the Spirit is joy, and the fruit of the Spirit is peace and patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. But the fruit of the Spirit is love, and the fruit of the Spirit is joy, and the fruit of the Spirit is peace and patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control.
But the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace.
I got my
Mojo 50.
I got my mojo working out.
Live free.
I got my mojo working. I got my mojo working out. But it just won't work on you. I got my mojo working. But I just don't know what to do, y'all.
Coffee lovers everywhere now have the opportunity to do their part to save the planet with Al Gore's lab-grown coffee substitute. We, here at Coffee Drinkers for Climate Change, believe this is a terrible idea. While man-bun-wearing, soy latte-loving poodle walkers everywhere are in love with the eco-friendly lab-grown sadness water, Coffee Drinkers for Climate Change want to see the sea levels rise. And for New York City to join the lost city of Atlantis, 12,000 leagues beneath the sea.
American Pride Roasters, historically great coffee. Every pot brewed is an eco-disaster 100 times greater than the Fukushima extinction level event. So order yours today and do your part to hasten the end of the planet. You don't want to live forever, do you? AmericanPrideRoasters.com. That's AmericanPrideRoasters.com.
How dare you?
We dare. We dare.
Get smoked by J Pound.
I've got something to tell you. Size matters. But it's not what you think. For every pound of weight you gain, your body has to grow approximately 5 miles of blood vessels. This means your heart has to work a lot harder, and vascular supply to vital organs is decreased. Weight gain doesn't just happen in your waist, but your face, arms, chest, hips, and thighs, so those inches can really add up. What we think is just a few pounds can be the determining factor for how healthy your heart really is. So start making small changes today to lose that extra girth and get the blood to the right places. There can't be smoke without fire, so let's light it up.
Go to Smoke Show Fitness on Facebook or contact Smoke Show Fitness for personalized nutrition and fitness coaching. 405-240-1807.
I love being an independent woman, but sometimes even I need something strong and rugged. I'm not opposed to having a relationship that will last forever. That's why I got myself a cat cooler. What? You thought I was going to say a man. They're made in the United States, and they come with a lifetime guarantee. What else could a girl ask for? Find your life partner at catcoolers.com. catcoolers.com.
This has been good for me going through this with y'all. I didn't realize,
it's a little bit more than just what the words appear to be when you read it, doesn't it?
It really is.
Yeah.
It really is. I've never done something in depth on one verse. This is amazing. So meekness went with gentleness and goodness, but temperance.
Well. Whenever we go into gentleness, that's not we haven't went to the Greek word on that yet, which was what, of course, Paul was using whenever.
Okay,
he was
I thought
speaking.
you said all three were together, but okay.
Yeah. A lot of these things are overlapping.
They're
and all
similar.
That, but
Yeah.
But I mean, like I said, going through some of the words that from originally used and looking at the definitions, you get a little bit more on the intention and some of the things that is encompasses it. Next one, the word that he used for gentleness, protis, and
for meekness. Yeah.
And whenever I'm looking here at what they give for the definition on here, the biggest thing about it is it indicates the spirit or attitude with which we accept God's dealings with us or how others treat us. This part right here is where, whenever we were talking beforehand, where most of the street preachers go wrong. Because they have the attitude of trying to be right and win the argument, where a proper one has the attitude of trying to win the person and not the argument.
Right, exactly.
My definition is the disposition of to be gentle, kind, indulgent, even tempered in temperament and passions, and patient in suffering injuries without feeling a spirit of revenge.
Right.
We were talking about road rage earlier. Somebody cuts you off. What's your action? Especially us when we're loaded down to 80,000 pounds and we need about 6 football fields to stop.
Yeah.
Or Kinsey when he's loaded down even heavier than me. So.
Yeah, well, that's because I got an extra axle that you don't have.
Yeah.
but I mean, still, it's not easy to spot whenever you're 120. It's not easy to spot when you're 80,000 pounds, much less stop when you're 120,000 pounds.
Yep.
Yeah, it was. Here's a trucker story that I'll tell you. I was riding along with my brother, and we were taking a load of silicomanganese, which is this really, really dense, heavy ore, and we were taking it up to the steel plant in Fontana at the time. And so you're going way back to the 80s on this.
Is that what they refer to as pig iron or something else?
It's something else, but okay. I mean, it's actually almost worse than pig iron. Just couple of bucketfuls over each axle was enough to pull you out at 80. And my brother, because he knew there was no scales between here and there, would run at like 100. Okay. So for any of you who've ever been down to San Diego, there's what they call the 805 freeway. And it kind of exits out of San Diego, comes down through the valley, and then it immediately goes up this steep incline on the other side. And so my brother and I, we were just, tootling around, and we're talking with each other and chatting. And we get to the uphill part. So my brother had a good run up, geared down, and we're talking. And all of a sudden, the whole cab just starts like shimmying. We have no idea what's going on. But we can see now that as people pass us, they're like looking horrid at the front end of his rig, which was a big old auto car with like a 12-foot long, nose off of it. And suddenly we see people panic and waving and pointing. So We pull over about halfway up the hill. Somebody came flying on the off ramp in this little Volvo, and tried to, obviously pass from us into the faster lane. And they must have clipped the right front end, and they ended up sideways against the front bumper, and we couldn't see it.
Oh, my.
So we were pushing the car sideways. But we had this huge heavy metal chrome bumper on the front. The lady in it was about catatonic by the time we got pulled over. No tires left or anything, and she was lucky that we had that huge chrome bumper on there. Otherwise, it just would have sucked her under, and it would have been probably a disaster for us both. That's one of those things where, that's a come to Jesus moment, in itself,
Right on.
You just almost came closer than what she thought she was going to that day.
Yep. And that tells you just how easy it is to stop 100,000 pounds when it's doing, 60 miles an hour.
Yeah. And you said uphill too, didn't you?
Yeah.
There you go.
I think of meekness. A lot of people like to confuse meekness with weakness. And actually, to be a meek person is really takes a lot of self-control, a lot of personal inward strength, if you think about it.
Right.
Yeah.
Because you want to tell that person off that cut you off.
Right.
You want to tell that person off that pulls up beside you and sticks their middle finger out the window at you. It's really a lot about self-control if you think about it. I mean, James talks about taming the tongue.
I think that I read where, because the word meekness is kind of changing in popular culture, a lot of Bible translations are going now to the gentleness because it better conveys our problem or our disposition instead of meekness, which is a lot of people are just straight out read it as weakness.
And it's a lack of pride too. I forget who it was talking about pride earlier. A meek person is not out there boasting and being very prideful about, I'm great, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, and that we use the street preacher a few times tonight, and how some of them, instead of coming at you the right way, they just want to damn you to hell,
right?
And that's not going to turn a lot of people on to Christ because
they're not seeing Christ,
right? And and think about arguments. How many of us have arguments with our spouse?
I don't have enough hands.
Do we have the capability in us to admit when we're wrong? Do we have the capability to listen to the other side of the story? Me personally, I think all of us probably, if we're being honest, sometimes we might struggle with that. Yeah. I know I still do after all these years.
Yeah, I know. In all these years, she still thinks I'm wrong.
There you go.
I just learned to say, "You're right."
Yeah,
you're right.
Now,
I forget what comic I was.
Said that.
Now, whenever
the two most important words in the English language. Yes, dear.
Now, referring
to what comic it was that I saw that at it, but it shows a guy sitting there telling his wife, going, "Dear, for the last 30 years, you've done nothing but ever correct me." And you see her lean over and whisper at him, going, "It says 31 years." So.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah.
Now, whenever we get before we move on over here, whenever it comes to, I guess, whenever we were talking about gentleness and meekness, when we looked up the original word, it was the attitude of how you deal with the person, trying to win the person rather than the fight.
Right.
Jordan Peterson, whenever he talks about meekness, and I believe it was whenever Christ was going through the Beatitudes that he was talking about the meek shall inherit the earth. The people being meek, the description that Jordan Peterson had when he was talking about this, say, imagine a number of soldiers that have their swords and they're well trained, well ready to go, and they keep their swords sheathed and make sure it stays there until absolutely necessary. They're not quick to draw it out.
Right.
That is what he was saying for meekness, because
right.
to be, I guess you could say, 90